We're good, Chair.
Okay, I'd like to open the meeting of the Accommodation Tax Advisory Committee and call the meeting to order and acknowledge that the press and the public have been duly notified of the meeting in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act. First item on the agenda is review of previous meeting minutes. And do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second? I'll second. Discussion?
Yes. I just need to make a slight change to the wording. On page 3 of the minute notes, where it says Mr. Akers, if we could change that to why the application should not be considered, just adding the word not in front of considered.
Absolutely.
That's it. Thank you.
It creates a double negative, but it's
Yeah.
basically, that's the
That was the
easiest way to
Yeah.
fix it, we thought. Okay, any other discussion or corrections? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, next item is a review of the financial statements, and Deborah Hamilton will lead us in that discussion.
Okay. Good morning, council. I want start with the balance sheet for September. When I prepared this, of course, October was not completed yet, so we're going to review September's financials. As of September 30th, we have a fund balance of $4.0 million, and this has increased over a prior year by $1.3 million. And we have a healthy cash balance of $4.4 million. The funds that have come in, the revenue that we're recognizing thus far for FY '24, we did receive the body armor assistant grant of $12,000. And year-to-date, we've received $53,000 in interest income. As for the expenditures, I want to note that we did pay the $5,000 for the VFW Post wooden walkway, and that's coming out of the program and sponsorship funds of $50,000. And of course, we spent the $18,000 for the fireworks for July 4th. I also want to note that there is a negative in the expenses of $7,110 because we invoice the CVB for the shared payroll of the staff member we shared. And the only other large expense is the code enforcer's truck, and that was $38,000. So as of September 30th, we've spent $121,000. And also wanted to mention that I have received all the information from CVB regarding FY '23, so I'm wrapping up the Turk report this week.
Okay, Deborah, can we, on the $50,000 budget number for the ATAX grant applications, my thinking is that we have a balance right now of $35,000, which would be the 50 less the 5,000 for the VFW and 10,000 for the lighting on the front beach there. Do we agree on that? Is it our balance is $35,000?
That is correct. We haven't paid out the $10,000 yet, but yes, it has been approved.
Yeah,
Okay.
the 10,000 for the lighting project has not yet been approved by council. Once you all make a recommendation on the additional applications, we'll bring that
Right.
all. There was a second application received as part of the FY24 application process from the Make-A-Wish Foundation. You all may recall, additional information was requested of the applicant that has not yet been provided. We've invited that group to come before you all, and they just have not been able to do so. So that application was never, even though it was heard by the committee at the first presentation meeting, no recommendation has been made so far in
Right.
regards to that application.
I just wanted everybody to understand what we had in terms of a balance.
That would be 35,000.
Yeah. Is that it?
Yes, sir, that's all I have.
Okay. Okay, there's no old business to discuss, so the next item on the agenda is new business, and we need a motion to approve two over-budget items in the expenditures. One, the irrigation at Breach Inlet message board of an amount of $338. And the second item is Public Works F-150 replacement truck for a total of $33,439. Do I have a motion to approve those overages?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay. Discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Okay, next item is presentation of new applications for second-round funding for accommodations tax funds for fiscal '24. Do we care what order we go in? Because we're pretty flexible.
So we received 4 applications. They're in your packet. The first application that the city received as part of the second round of funding was from a renowned author about a reading and author event at Wild Dunes. That's the first application you have. We also received an application from the about a YMCA for an MLK VIP reception in Wild Dunes. Third application we received was regarding a singing event.
Songwriter.
A songwriter, I'm sorry, a songwriter event in Wild Dunes as well, I believe. And, no, I'm sorry.
Dinghy.
That's
At
at
the
the Dinghy.
Dinghy. I'm sorry, I'm getting them switched in my head. A songwriter event, and then a fourth application was from our local VFW for some window replacement and maintenance repairs.
Right. Okay, then I would like to invite Mary Alice Monroe to give us a presentation on her application.
Good morning. Thank you all, and it's an honor to be here today. I really appreciate it. I'm just going to introduce Heidi Klupek from Wild Dunes, and Angela May is not only a co-author of mine, but she runs with me the event, so she joined us today. It's an honor to be here, and I thought I'd give you a really brief presentation because I know your time is precious. I started this about 20 years ago, this Wild Dunes author event with Mary Alice Monroe. It'll be 20 years next year, a big event. And I've watched it grow from 35 people at the club, where I just invited author friends. It's just a passion project, to about 2004, 2005, Amy Satilli Gay took over at Wild Dunes, and we got the big conference center. And with that, we immediately shot to 250 people. It was sort of a flash. And we provide a different kind of author experience, more intimate. Over the years, we worked solely on the money we got from tickets. And if you've ever done an event or a fundraiser, and this is a fundraiser for literacy in our area, you know how hard that is to do. So to keep the ticket price low enough that people will come, but also enough that we can make expenses, because all the food costs and all the extra, what would you call them, curricular costs, like programming and dinners and all that, came from ticket price. With us being mindful, we wanted to have something left over for charity. And Wild Dunes pretty much gave everything else in terms of donating space and staff and all the help that they could give. So we did it for years, and it really grew. And under Heidi Klupek, we've moved to the Osprey Ballroom, and it jumped to 500 people. And Forbes magazine said that this was one of the 10 reasons you should come to Charleston in the winter. So we are on the map. And we've really done it by pinching pennies, and I volunteered my time. These women volunteered their time. The authors I got were friends, and for years I was able to pull. I'm kind of running out of my friends. We're going to have honorariums to face in the future. And they donated their time. So this was all a passion project. We chose January, and we always do it in January over Martin Luther King weekend, because we're aware that this is a slow time on the island. We can get services, we can get the room. June, obviously, we can't. It's the high season for us. So because we chose January, we tried to expand. We've had luncheons at Long Island Cafe, and that was such a success that we thought, ooh, we're onto something here. We can get out of Wild Dunes now onto the island. And last year, I got to invite #1 New York Times bestselling authors, and we'll do a clip of that. But with that, we suddenly took it to a whole new level. And we're at a tipping point. I'm of a certain age where I'm getting a little tired, and how much I can do on my own, and I need support. We need support to spread the word through the media about what's happening on Isle of Palms. This is the premier literary event in the whole Charleston area, and it's here on our island. And we have increased from one-day event to a weekend. I think that particular point is what really made me realize it was time to approach everyone here today, because we need to expand it. It'll be a weekend. We can involve rentals on the island. Wild Dunes is not trying to take over all the hotel rooms. They embrace the idea that all the rentals here on the island participate. In fact, they really hope it happens. Restaurants. I'd love to use restaurants here to expand. Other activities that involve local taste of Isle of Palms. So we're at this tipping point, and I need help. I didn't realize all these years that I could come to you to ask for help. The awareness of what's going on with the ATAX committee was new for me, even though I've lived here for 25 years. So I come here with a request to help us pay for the yearly expenses and to continue this really nationally known event, but also to expand it on the island. Angela has a really quick a bird's eye view for those of you who may not have attended the island. Last year we had David Baldacci, again a #1 New York Times bestselling author, and Kathy Reichs, who's my pal and lives on the island. So I can pull these people. Angela, why don't we take a peek?
And this is a video created by Island Eye News. They did a recap. Here we go.
Years ago at Wild Dunes Members Club with 50 people. And just the membership. It was fun. I was so thrilled to introduce my book. I think The Beach House was just coming out. And since then, we moved to the Sweetgrass Conference Center where there were 250 people, and we did luncheons, and I invited wonderful authors, just a whole roster of the best authors in the United States and the world. That has grown to the 500 plus people here at the Osprey Ballroom. It's our first year in this beautiful new hotel, so we're all very excited. It's quite luxe. And over the years, we've gone from luncheons and panels to what I like to think of is a more intimate conversation. I get to invite authors I really like, and we talk to each other the night before and really get chummy. And then when we are up on the stage, we are already familiar with one another, have a lot to say, and the audience likes it because they feel like they're listening in. And we do take questions from the audience as well. I like this format. I'm going to continue. And this year, we're back after 3 years from COVID, and better than ever. We started our very first mystery pen, and we have Kathy Reichs, who's not only a dear friend and a fellow island resident, but of course the #1 New York Times bestselling author of the Bones series and her new book, Cold Cold Bones. David Baldacci, who is a huge force for literacy. Again, huge author, #1 New York Times bestseller, with his new book, Long Shadows. And I'm introducing another new mystery crime author. Her name is Deborah Goodrich Royce. And I met her up in the northeastern coast of Rhode Island, where she has Ocean House and has her own literary series. And she's a wonderful writer, and I know everyone's going to love her. And she wrote Reef Road. I am so honored that we get to bring so many people to the Isle of Palms. This is our home. It's made the Isle of Palms a literary center. Forbes magazine has called this event one of the 10 reasons to come to Charleston in the winter. We've really grown that big. So it's a 3-day weekend. People have lots of time, and I say to them, spoil yourself. Come spend time with fellow readers at one of the major literary events in Charleston. I love the Isle of Palms. I'm proud to be here, proud to be associated with Wild Dunes, and it's really an honor and a pleasure to do this every year and welcome you.
And I just have one more rousing applause for these fabulous authors.
Hi, we're closing down the 19th year we've done the Wild Dunes Author event with Mary Alice Monroe. And after having 3 years of no events, we're back. And it's been better than ever. We had the best time. The authors, David Baldacci, Kathy Wrights, and Deborah Goodrich Royce were amazing. Everyone had a good time, had a lot of coffee. Beach House Blend available in Harris Teeter now. I'm so excited. I just found that out today. This has been a joy for me. I've done this for so many years, and to be back doing it here on Isle of Palms. Oh, I hope everyone comes back next year.
Okay, so I had an absolute blast. It was an honor to be here, and I love everyone I met, the authors, and especially the readers. Thank you.
Just finished signing at the Wild Dunes Authors event with Mary Alice Monroe. I have to say, this is one of my favorite events. Mary Alice does a fantastic job organizing, and the audiences are always so receptive. So thank you, Charleston. Thank you, Isle of Palms, for having us here.
It was a great event for me. I love hearing the stories from the other authors, and it was an honor for me to be with them. The audience is great. We need more book festivals just like this. The world will be a much better place for Isle of Palm book festivals like this one.
I'm sorry, I realized I repeated a lot of the information there. Thank you very much. I don't want to take any more time. Does anyone have any questions, please?
Mary Alice,
Yes.
does your organization have a 501c3 designation?
Not yet. It's something that, there's a lot of things I wish I had done over the years, but I just didn't have time, and it's all on me. But to answer the question is, talk to a lawyer, and we're beginning that now. So by this year's event, we will be.
Okay.
I had a comment.
Yes.
This is the best application I've seen in the period of time I've
I'm so nervous. Thank you.
on this committee.
Thank you.
And I want to congratulate you
Thank you.
for that. And I do realize that you had a short period of time to prepare this. Also, it appears that maybe our guidelines aren't online anymore. That could cause you some problems. Mr. Burns asked a very good question about whether or not you are filing 990s and 990Ts, meaning the nonprofit tax returns, are you a 501c3? And I heard your answer, and I want to give you that preface that I think it's a wonderful program. I want to do everything I can to support you, but I've got one problem that I'm having trouble getting over the threshold. So I wanted to ask you if you could do this. In order for us to, the way I understand the law, for us to provide or to approve this grant, you have to already be a 501c3. So I'm asking if it's possible, if we table this decision to give you a chance to become a 501c3, would that be something that would be acceptable to you?
I'm perfectly happy to do that. I'm perfectly happy to do that. I don't know, how long it takes to do it, but in terms of liability, the event at this year is at Wild Dunes, and they're covered for liability for the event. If in the future, if we move out of the city, that will be a concern. But for the 501c3, you're talking about just the charity donation, or for you to give it to us? Because I will do it. I just don't know how long that's going to take, sir. But I'll rush it as fast as I can.
It's kind of not in my wheelhouse as a lawyer,
Yeah.
but I think that it takes it ought to take a lawyer about a day to.
Oh,
to-
consider it
to
done.
file, a day or two to
Yes.
prepare the appropriate documents and then file them with the Secretary of State, and then you'd be good to go.
Consider it done. I am, Mary Alice Monroe Limited, does it help, is a corporation. Does that help at all? But I don't know if that eases your mind, but you just need a 501c3.
What I did is I went to the Secretary's, I first went to GuideStar to see if you had a 990, and then they're often, the tax returns, so they're often.
I see.
They're a little late sometimes in getting them posted, or it depends on when your fiscal year ends. So I went to the Secretary of State website and saw that you were a corporation, but I was looking for the magic words that we have to.
It's been, 100%, and Angela and I have talked about this over the years. It's really just been part of the reason I need support is to have people to guide me in these directions.
You were doing a wonderful.
So I'm doing the best, but I appreciate what you're saying, and we will get that for you.
How about if we did something to the effect that we would take this under consideration, and with the stipulation that the money would not be released by the city until the evidence of
Fine.
the 501c3 existed?
Well, how about if we vote on it?
Right, that's what I'm saying. We
Okay,
vote on it
right.
under the premise that
That's the
that
idea,
will
yeah.
be in place at the time when the money is released, and then that should cover
Understood. Thank you.
everything.
Can we do it non-proton? I think we have before.
Well, I have
We-
a few questions before we vote.
Yeah,
Is that what
yeah.
you're saying? Can
And
Yeah,
I
go
would
right ahead,
suggest
Gloria.
that you wait until you hear all applications before you take a recommendation and a vote.
Okay. Gloria?
So when you are promoting this, your event, do you have a copy of what online, what it looks like? Do you only list
Angela
Wild
does right here.
Dunes? Do you list other,
Yes, we do. That's a good question. We promote it, Wild Dunes promotes it, the authors promote it. So David Baldacci has his huge operation going. So it spreads nationally, but we do promote it. My Facebook has a lot of, and my personal social media.
Yeah.
Do you have something, do you have that last bit?
I have a sample of, I can.
Just a
click-
Facebook sample we
I
have for you.
can show you right now on Facebook and Instagram what went out yesterday. It was a quick reel promoting what this year's January event will be. Would you
Which
like
we're very
that?
That's not what I guess
Okay.
what I'm trying to get at are, the overnight accommodations, whether you just put like accommodations are at Wild Dunes or, visit, VRBO or what other, how are you promoting overnight?
Well, I'll tell you,
accommodations?
honestly, up till, we only just did because COVID really held us back.
True.
And we just jumped to 500. So what we did last year was we put it in the newsletter, just the announcements, and we had people stay at Wild Dunes because they offered a discount. This is one of the reasons I'm coming to you, is that I would like to, it's to expand it to include the island. And we haven't done that yet. I'm waiting to see what happens.
So have you thought about any kind of packaging? And when you say it's a 3-day event, is there like a Friday night authors,
Yes.
special VIP dinner somewhere? Tell me everything you can about how else besides, because I've just seen the one big event. What are
Okay.
other things that you are doing for the whole 3-day weekend?
Thank you. Actually, this is the tipping point we're very excited about.
Okay.
So last year was our first time. 2 years ago, COVID, we had to cancel, even though we sold out completely for the whole weekend. It was our first attempt. So Friday night cocktail party, people come in and with the authors. Saturday are workshop events with authors, and Sunday is the main event.
Got it. Okay.
So what we're hoping to do starting next year is to expand this to be not just major authors, but to include local authors, a memoirist, maybe even a poet workshop, to bring in smaller events and artists, local artists from Isle of Palm, Sullivan's Island, to have a show or a luncheon and to bring it out throughout the island. So it's not all just at Wild Dunes, it's throughout the island. So we will build that, but that's what would be next year. But for this year, we have opening Friday night. Saturday is workshops. We have them almost all sold out already. We have a Barrier Island Eco Tours taking a group to Dewey's
There
Island
we
for a
go.
speech.
Okay, there we go.
We have workshops for an island. We're taking, William Kent Kruger is speaking at the Art Gallery about his mystery series on Saturday. So that takes up all Saturday. Saturday night, we're looking for the opportunity, we haven't organized it yet, to have discounts from local restaurants to give people a chance to go
Perfect.
off and have their own dinner.
Perfect, that's what I was
And
getting
then
at.
Sunday, we're going to do a brunch with the main event.
Yeah.
So I'd like to kick it into Monday in the future, but we're not there
There you
yet.
go. Or stay an extra day, and here are other things to do on our island.
Exactly,
Right.
exactly.
All right, so, and that's just packaging that people can help you with. So I did have one last question, also, and this might be for your Wild Dunes person, but I see it's a rooming list. And tell me the difference between your rooming list and then your room nights, your Friday, yeah, your paid room nights. Talk to me about that. It
There was
doesn't
a
make
little
sense to
chart.
me. It doesn't add, I'm not sure. Because Friday on the 13th, it says 113 room nights. But if you add up just from the rooming list, are they two separate things?
So it's when people check in.
Come up and talk
Come
to
up
the
and talk to
microphone.
the
I can catch it for you. Thank you.
So the room nights are the number of people that checked in on Friday night, number of people that checked in on Saturday night.
Okay, so that's not really room nights, because room nights is a cumulative. It should be just, night.
Correct.
Right. I mean, so Friday night, it was 113 people that checked into the inn or checked into?
The property.
Just checked into the property. All right, so, but that doesn't correspond with your rooming list.
No.
So they're two different, so
Correct. They're two different.
how are they different? Then what am I looking at?
So we had a code that people could use to get a discount,
Oh, right, okay.
in addition to the number of people, if they didn't use the code, they checked in.
So you have a way, so, all right, I'm just trying to get at, there was hopefully a block that had.
Correct. No, there was a- there
The
was a
writer's
room block.
weekend where you can collect that data. That's the whole point, right?
Correct.
Okay. So the bottom list
And I
is,
can get you more specifics.
yeah, I'm just looking, the bottom list, because you only have 1, 2, 3, 4 people checking in on your rooming list for the night of the 13th. But on the top, you're telling me 113 people came.
Let me go back and.
Gloria, that's
check.
2019, that was historical information, I think.
It doesn't say on it. The bottom doesn't say.
I think, I'm assuming this is what you're looking at.
I'm looking at the room. Yeah, but then you go down to the next, the rooming list. See, I see, I see, right.
23,
But
22, 24.
got it. All right, yes. But I'm still saying, for example, like Friday night, look at your top, Friday night, 119, that's 119.
113, yeah.
Or, yeah,
13.
113 rooms.
113 people. Is it people or rooms?
It should be rooms.
Rooms,
It's 113 rooms, but then if you look at the rooming list, so is that rooming list from
The
this
rooming
year?
list is from 2022.
So, still doesn't add up. Just saying.
I can get
So
more
hate to be, but, I need to know, like, how many people are coming and spending the night. And I think in the future, you need to really, that's what we're looking at, heads in beds. That's all I'm saying.
So without going through all this, how many people stayed, or how many rooms were rented in Wild Dunes for the event last year?
That I would have to go back and look.
Okay.
Okay,
So
that's
we
good
can get
information
you
to know.
More details.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that'd be
Okay,
awesome.
absolutely.
And I think the main point here is, no one realizes more than I that we don't have the records that we like. This was flying by the seat of our pants to get this done. I have a full-time job as a novelist, and everyone else here has full-time jobs. This was passion project to bring people in. But I recognize, Blair, you're 100% right, that we need to have these records, and we will hire someone to have that done. Okay? Because I appreciate that. We've grown so fast. So we
And
will,
I
we will
commend you.
get
It's an
that for
awesome
you.
event.
Yeah, we will get that important information for you. Any other questions?
Any other questions?
Thank you again. I really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Alice.
May I say something? May I say something? I related this to Miss Monroe, that I have friends and family all over the United States. The minute that Mary Alice Monroe announces a new book, I get calls. Can I come stay at your house? I want to, and if they can't come, I'm the one that ends up standing in line for them to get the book and get it autographed. I think, in my opinion, that Mary Alice Monroe has put Isle of Palms on the map in areas of the country that are very remote from South Carolina. The minute I say I live in Isle of Palms, the first thing they ask me, do you know Mary Alice Monroe? And but she has done, in my opinion, more for the tourism for Isle of Palms than anyone that I know of.
Okay. Do we want to, are there any other questions or comments?
I had a comment. I'm going to be very supportive, and echo what Rebecca would say. And I'd be willing to come back on very short notice. I think this is very important to, once the application, or excuse me, once there was in place a nonprofit and vote in favor. I worry, but I'm going to seek guidance from our city administration. I worry to some degree whether we can do something what's called non-proton later for now, when council can't decide until this is in effect. When is the next, we're just advisory, and council has to make the ultimate decision. If they couldn't, I don't think they could vote until everything was in place, could they?
I think that a motion that makes the award contingent upon receiving proof of the 501c3 status is something that I'm sure they can consider. We would receive those records, confirm, and then at that point notify council that the records and the motion has been satisfied, and therefore the disbursement could be done.
And would council vote at that time?
No, they can vote before then.
They would vote before there was compliance with the law.
My understanding is that the requirement for an organization to be a 501c3 in order to be eligible is a requirement established and approved by this committee in February 2021. I have not found anything from state law that requires an organization to be a 501c3 in order to be eligible for ATAX funding. I have requested a confirmation from Demita Halcom from the Turk, from the Tourism Expenditure Review Committee. I have not yet received that. But my understanding is that that was approved by this committee, obviously different members, a couple of years ago.
Okay.
Therefore, I guess to answer your question, I do think council could approve contingent upon receiving confirmation from the applicant that they have satisfied the requirements of this board.
Well, they could grant this regardless of what we do, because we're simply an advisory committee. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay. Now, do we want to vote on all of the applications at the end of the presentations?
I would suggest you do that. It's similar to the process you all did at the beginning of the year. You had a separate meeting for just presentations and then a follow-up meeting for consideration of approval. So that's certainly, it's up to the committee, but I would suggest that you follow that same
But still do it
process.
today?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Okay, let's go ahead, let's do that. Thank you, Mary Alice and Heidi.
So the second application is going to be joining, I think we have somebody in the room that representing YMCA? No? Okay.
YWCA.
Yes, I'm sorry. She is via Zoom, so I will connect her. You'll be able to see her, she won't be able to see you. So just speak into the mic. All right, Ms. Lavanda, can you hear me? Oh, I think are you on mute? I can't hear you. John, could you connect me?
Is that not yours?
No. Why is it not showing? We did the same thing with her computer. All right. So why don't we go to the third applicant while I try to get this squared away? I don't know, it worked with your computer, it's not working with mine. So let's do that. The third applicant was the, yes.
IOP Songwriters.
Landale Productions.
Good morning. Good morning. My name is Dave Landio of Landio Music Productions. I've been a full-time musician since 1994, so I'm very happy and blessed that I was able to have that kind of career. So through the years, I've decided, I love getting involved in philanthropies. And coming from Knoxville, Tennessee, where I graduated, and I was in a fraternity at the time, also in the United States Marine Corps Reserve. I decided, I wanted to give back to the community. So in Tennessee, 10 years ago, I started a fundraiser for Alzheimer's research. And from 10 years, I've got a Tennessee Alzheimer's organization that joined me last year, and we raised over $23,000. And the event is called Dave Landio's Tailgate for Alzheimer's. So just a little briefing on how I started getting into philanthropies and events. In the meantime, living in Mount Pleasant, I perform around town. Might have seen some of you guys at places. I play Wild Dunes. I played there for 15 years. The Dinghy, the Windjammer, Coconut Joe's. I love it. I'm more of an entertainer, performer, and songwriter more than anything. So as I would take my jogs through Olive Palms through the years, I realized, wow, that'd be great to have a songwriters festival. So last year, I presented to the Dinghy, the owner, Brent Jones, and I said, Brent, how about an event where you don't have to do anything? Nobody has to do anything, and I did it all myself out of just my passion for the arts. And so we had our first Songwriters Festival last year, in March, and even though it rained, we still were able to raise like $3,000 for the Low Country Orphan Relief. So the philanthropy is always there. So my friend Ben Bounds of Hollywood Productions and I met him at a conference that he was putting on downtown for similar businesses, and we started talking. I thought it'd be great to have a festival like they have in Key West and the Frank Brown in Florida. There's like all these very respectful events where they have songwriters where it's very similar to what Mary was talking, having just very storytellers but set to music, and people that are like regional and national, eventually national renowned songwriters come here and be part of an event. We just had one day, or I just had it that one day, and it was successful. We had 6 local artists. I got 4 sponsors. We had enough income to make it happen. So now we wanted to go one step up and thought, it'd be great to have like a festival, like you have the Christmas festival and the Spring Festival. Just one day, maybe 2 days. It all depends on like how much we have the capital to work with, and also the people to book. But definitely centered around everything a la Palms. No food trucks from the outside the area. Just helping people, put heads in beds, helping out the local restaurants, anything that has to do with the community, and make it just something that Isle of Palms can be proud of. We sent a tentative date because this is kind of didn't happen. It was the wheels were already rolling, but I'm totally open for any kind of suggestions on how and when, if it matters. Like, let's say winter is definitely a slower period for the city, so it could be even just put on any weekend that would work. The idea just is kind of the foundation has been set, and so I'd like Ben to come up in if he can and just kind of. He's got a lot of experience, and he'll tell you as far as festivals in the area.
Thanks, Buzz. First I want to say that was an awesome presentation. Yeah, I'm coming to your event next year, for sure. That was great. Yes, ma'am. Oh, I'm going to be there, for sure. Thank you all for having me. It was great. When I walked in, I recognized Nicole. She has been on that side of the table when I've made about 20 of these presentations for the city of Folly Beach, dating back to when I ran the festivals for the Folly Association of Business for about 7.5 years, from 2009 to 2016. I ran the Sea and Sand Festival, which is the longest running event on Folly Beach, for 7 years. I oversaw its largest growth and its largest increase in revenue in its 30-plus year history. I ran Taste of Folly Festival for 3 years. I was one of the 3 directors for the Follypalooza Cancer Benefit for 7 or 8 years, and I ran 2 Folly Girl parades, and I ran the 40th of Folly, which was the 40th anniversary of Folly becoming a municipality back in 2013. And then actually they just called me back to book their headliner for the 50th Folly just a couple weeks ago. So we had the TAMs out there. So a little bit about me. I've put on more than 50 festivals over the last 20 years. In the last 15, I've done about 35 here in the greater Charleston area, including 20 street closure festivals on Folly Beach. I worked with their city council, their ATAX committee, public works and public safety very closely for a very long time, and had great relationships and great success working with all of those entities. And we really pulled everything together and had everybody pulling in the same direction for a very long time, and kind of had a seamless process there for a while until I got married and moved to Greenville for 6 years. And I got back to Charleston a year ago last week, and I don't live on the Folly side anymore. I live in Mount Pleasant. My house is about 12 minutes from here, and so it was just fortuitous that I ran into Dave. I had started working in event coordinating again full-time about 8 months ago. Ran into Dave about 4 months ago. He pitched this idea to me, and I was like, man, I'd love to be involved in that. I've got a ton of experience putting these kind of events on. And he said, well, what's our next thing? And I said, well, have you ever gotten any ATAX grant money? And he said, no, I don't know anything about that process. I said, well, I've gone through the process a couple times, so let's at least get an application in. I said, a lot of times the first year you apply for one of these things, you get tabled until year 2. They kind of want to see what you can do on your own. And so I've had that experience a couple times as well. But anyway, real quick, I wanted to say that Isle of Palms is a perfect location for a Songwriters Festival for this reason. The largest Songwriters Festivals in the world, most of them take place in a beach town, and most of them take place in the southeastern United States, primarily Florida. You've got the Frank Brown International Songwriters Festival, the 30A Songwriters Festival, and then the granddaddy of them all, the Key West Songwriters Festival. You've also got Palm Coast and Island Hopper, but these are generally considered the largest songwriters festivals, if not in the country, in the world. They have all been going on for anywhere from 10 to 40 years. These things have been going on for a very long time. It takes a long time to build the kind of following that they have, but they draw thousands of people every year. Their events are family friendly, they're community friendly. They're the kind of events that the community looks forward to every year and can be very proud of. These are the kind of events that a lot of their off-season tourism really centers around these events in those communities. And we think that Isle of Palms is the perfect destination in South Carolina to become the main songwriter festival hub for the state of South Carolina. I know that we were kind of late in the game getting our application in. We didn't necessarily have time to put together a separate proposal for you guys today. We just found out on Monday that we would be here today. Look, to piggyback off what Dave said, we want to kind of start the process of making this a bona fide and legitimate annual festival. And growing out of the parking lot at the dinghy and hopefully into Ocean Boulevard or the front beach area right there where you have your holiday festival and your spring festival and those kind of things. We want to have, art and apparel vendors, nonprofits present, local food vendors, like he said. One of the things when we've talked to some of the local business owners around here, they said, hey, look, can you make it a little more local? Can you, instead of bringing in food trucks from Mount Pleasant or North Charleston or wherever, can we just have the restaurants on the beach serve the food so we can keep all the revenue on the island? I said, yeah. We actually, when I took over the festivals on Folly Beach, that was one of the very first things we did. Was I met with the now defunct Restaurant Association, and they said, we want to knock out all outside food vendors because we want to keep that money in house. That was one of the very first housekeeping items that we did, and that was a major kind of a major feather in the cap because it really locked all of the revenue generation onto the island. We mentioned a nonprofit. We've actually got a couple in mind. There is a new nonprofit that was started this year by Bunky Odom. He's the longtime band manager for the Allman Brothers Band. He's been living in Charleston, I think, since 1980 or 81. And he has started a nonprofit called Rock and Roll Rescue. And what they're doing is they are raising money to buy instruments and donate them to local schools here in the greater Charleston area to kind of get young people involved in the music making, songwriting process at a very early age and kind of give them a creative outlet. And I think a lot of this is aimed towards maybe underprivileged kids whose families can't afford a guitar or a piano or a drum kit or a saxophone or whatever. So it is a giving back mechanism. It's a great organization. Some of the board members on this nonprofit are executives at Garden and Gun and other major companies here in the Low Country. So they do have some legitimacy, even though they are brand new and most people don't know of them because they haven't really had any fundraising events yet. But I know that they're interested in partnering with some events to kind of go ahead and jumpstart their fundraising. So I think they'd be at least something to be considered. That's about all I've got. We do want to grow this thing into, Dave, what he was able to pull off last year with a very local lineup, but we do want to grow into a regional and then a national and then an international lineup over the next couple of years as we grow. We'd be happy with anything you guys could give us. I know we had to put a dollar amount on the application, right? And so we try to keep it fairly small because it was year one. Wanted to keep the ask fairly small. And I understand the first time I did one of these, I didn't get everything I asked for. I got about half. I think I asked for $5,000 for CNSAM Festival 15 years ago, and I got $2,500 and started with that. And we watched that festival go from drawing 350 people the year before I took over to about 5,000 people the first year I ran it. And when I walked away from it, it was drawing close to 10,000 people. So that's the kind of impact I've been able to have on attendance and revenue wherever I've gone and with whatever event or community that I've worked with. So do you guys have any questions for me or Dave?
Do y'all have a lineup yet?
We don't, because our lineup's going to. We have some feelers out. We've talked to probably 15 to 20 artists, but we want to make sure we have the right date. And that's going to depend on if we're going into the dinghy parking lot again. then we're going to do April 14th. If we've got an opportunity to go into the street, then that could change, and that'll be based on what you guys tell us. So that's kind of in flux right now. All right, what else?
I have a question. I'm going to have the same question. I appreciate you very much, you coming here. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me.
My questions are more technical. And again, I want to make sure we're fair to everybody. We're feeding everybody out of the same spoon of justice, so to speak. How long have your corporation has been in existence?
Follywood Productions was launched in 2009 when I was.
And it's applicant, correct?
Well, we're co-applicants. Yep. So Dave's company and my company,
My company's an LLC. I've been full-time since '94, but the LLC is fairly new.
All right.
And my LLC was, I believe our LLC became official with the state in January of 2010.
And I'm just, again, looking at the data we have. I haven't seen part of the application process. And I know you came in late to it, and you may not have seen, like others, seen the guidelines. But do you have your 990s, 990Ts?
We do not yet, no.
Okay.
And again, any of the stuff that, whatever our shortfalls were because of us getting in late, whatever you guys tell us we need to get done, I mean, we can get stuff done pretty quickly.
I'm reading right as we're talking, what we have as our guidelines and want to respect those for the benefit of everybody, to treat everybody the same. So you don't have a nonprofit at this point in time.
Not yet. Now, he worked with, Dave, what was the nonprofit you worked with last year?
Low Country Orphan Relief.
So we do have them.
But what is the applicant has to be a 501c3. That's part of the requirement. Now, I mentioned that to Ms. Monroe, and it's not a difficult process to form it can be done by a lawyer, I would think.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's probably the direction Dave and I need to go in. And when we walk out of this room, that's probably the first call we're going to make is to each of our attorneys, see which one can get it done quicker, right?
And then the second question that really is very important for us or for council is how many, one of the metrics is heads on beds. How many,
heads on beds,
how many
right.
people
Yes, sir.
are you going to, how many people will we have come in?
With this being a second-year event, and Dave not knowing that we were going to be in this room on this day when he first, came up with that concept, we have no idea. So just to be completely transparent with you guys, we don't know in year one, or I guess technically year two, what we're going to do as far as heads and beds. I can tell you that in 2010, when I ran my first Sea and Sand Festival on Folly Beach, like I said, in 2009, they drew about 350 people. When I asked them what their goals were when they hired me to run the 2010 event, they said, well, we want to increase revenue and attendance. I said, okay. I said, what was your revenue? And they said, we didn't make any money. I said, what was your attendance? I said, about 350 people. I said, okay. What do you want to get to? And they said, we have no idea. You tell us. I said, okay. I said, well, why don't we make a goal 1,000 people and a $5,000, revenue?
Is that heads on beds?
Nope. No. So, but what we did, but when the heads and beds thing came up, I had never heard that until 2009 when I was in my first meeting like this. And so what we did is I said, okay, I went to the Tides at the time was the only hotel on Folly Beach. So I went and asked them, I said, how many rooms did you sell the weekend of Sea and Sand Fest last year? And they said, 22. I said, oh, okay. All right. I said, so we're starting. I was like, there's nowhere to go but up from here, right? And so the following year in 2010, the first year I took it over, we sold out the Tides, and we also sold out multiple, I guess Airbnb wasn't quite a thing yet, so you had to go through like somebody like Dunes Properties or Avocet Properties to rent a condo or a beach house. We rented out every room in the Tides and over 100 rooms or over 100 houses and condos for that weekend, and that was March of 2010. So the increase was, I don't know, I think we did, I guess if you count every room in the Tides, I don't know at the time, it was like 100 and something rooms and then another 100 houses, so 250 or so rentals for that weekend.
Well, I can only speak for myself. Under these extenuating circumstances where we've come in, we had deadline originally of January, and you got short notice. I can only speak for myself. I'd like to give you the grace to be able to give us some metrics so we could make a decision.
Well, our goal is to get 1,000 people to the island, and like your on the application, I noticed it had percentage of out of town, which I guess was more than 50 miles away, and then it was in Greater Charleston but don't live on Isle of Palms, and then Isle of Palms residents, right? So, okay, let's just say our goal for this year is to get 1,000 people to the festival, right? All right, so I would guess, our goal would be 500 people coming from the 50-mile radius, which you would consider a tourist, right? And then 250 people from the Greater Charleston area and another 250 from the island that come down, and maybe that's more. I like to lowball. I like to set expectations low, and then overachieve, just because it kind of seems to work out in the long run a little better. But our goal will be to get over 1,000 people here in year one. I mean, that's goal number one.
I'd like to ask several questions. First of all, you talked about what you've done in the past, which is very admirable.
Thank you.
But what you presented is the Isle of Palms Songwriter Festival, not what you've done in the past. I see that on Sunday, March the 12th, 2023, from 3 p.m. to 10 p.m., how many people stayed overnight?
That's my, because he wasn't.
I was not involved last year.
So,
If you don't mind speaking into the mic.
sorry.
Thank you.
Hi again. So because it was the first year and it was kind of like on a whim, there was no account of how many people spent the night. Like I don't know. I mean, we could probably go to the records and to see people like the local hotels, but it was on a Sunday night and it did rain, and it really did literally damper the event. But we were still able to raise money because we also had a silent auction. We had a lot of items that we sold, so there was a great participation. But yeah, so to answer that, we don't have any data on that.
So your goal would be to track it and then also
Yeah, we could-
have a goal, not only
Yeah.
just in attendance, but like make yourself a goal of, we want, 50 overnight sleeping rooms
Yeah.
on that particular night. That might just
Absolutely.
be a suggestion for you.
And again, we had to do that on Volley. It was one of those things that started kind of the second. I guess it started after we had gotten our grant. They were like, okay, now the clock is ticking and you gotta track this stuff moving forward. We did that every year for 7.5 years. So, yeah.
Could I ask Desiree something? Don't we have a spring closing off Ocean Boulevard Festival? What's the date of that?
It's usually the first Saturday in March when we have the
I just can't imagine
Front
the
Beach
city
Fest.
closing off the city every month for an event that big. Okay, so
It would take
it's
a lot
right-
of resources from the city, police and fire, police specifically,
Right.
since we would have to have somebody in every checkpoint.
How about at the rec center? Like on
No.
no?
Well,
I don't know.
But that was another thing we talked about, like, if there's another convenient time of the year,
Never mind.
That would be, because the street festival or the spring festival is within a month. of the-
Typically, we avoid the busy summer season
Right,
for any
right,
events,
right.
just because we're already overwhelmed.
Mhm.
And I think the focus of this committee has been to encourage and support events that bring visitors during the off-season.
Right. That's what we're
To
shooting
support the local businesses and not add to the existing pressures that we have in this season.
So on Folly, and I think Nicole can correct me if I'm wrong, but on Folly, you can only close the street between, I think it's October 1 and April 1. And at one point, it was longer than that, but then tourism increased, and so it shortened it. But I think at one point, it was September 1 to May 1. But I assume y'all are fairly similar in that regard, that you consider your season basically April through September, probably. So look, any time in those months, like Dave was saying, any time in those off-season months, we're not married to Sunday, April 14th. We would love to have a date. We would love to be sanctioned by the city and by the ATAX committee. We would like to take this out of the parking lot of the dinghy and make this a bona fide, legitimate festival.
And that's what it would take. It would take city council not only approving grant funding to support this project, but also approve it as a city-sponsored event. It has to go through a review by our staff, police and fire as well. Our season, typically it's March 1st through October 31st. That is when we charge for parking down at Front Beach. And there have been events, similarly the Lovello event that happened last weekend, where the city sanctioned it, approved it, and there were streets that required to be closed, and that was part of the approval process. So it is possible, highly unlikely that that'll happen during the season, though.
Okay. With that being said, if we needed to push the date up, make it sooner to get it inside that time frame for you guys, I think both of us could probably work with that. Like if you wanted to push into February or something like that to get it to in a month that you don't already have a street closure event, we'd be absolutely open to that. I think both of us, I know I work very well under a deadline. Nicole can tell you we had events that got postponed because of weather. We always set a rain date when we were on Folly Beach. And I had to deal with that three of the 20 times I did a festival out there. The original date got rained out. And so we had to push out either 7 to 14 days to the rain date. So when that happens, you lose at least half your performers. You lose at least half your vendors. You lose at least half your volunteers. You had to completely restaff and reset an event in 7 to 14 days. And I've had to do that 3 times over the last couple of years. And it's rigorous, and it'll make you want to pull your hair out. But I can work well under a deadline in a short amount of time. So if we did need to push this date up and make it to put it inside your off season, that's something we can both work around. No problem. If that's the kind of thing that can get us in our foot in the door, then we're flexible.
Okay, just so I've got this clear, it's November 8th right now, or whatever, and you're talking about February. You're talking about moving it from the dinghy onto the street?
Yes, ma'am.
With no history. I mean, but how do we know you're going to get anyone? I mean, how many people?
Yeah, that's a great question. It would be promotions, social media, like a full blitz promotion and of the acts that we would get. We already have tentative acts. We just need to reach out. That's where, being a full-time musician, I've met a lot of acts through the years, regional, local, and all of them, like last year, all 6 acts were immediately like, yeah, they didn't even ask about being paid. They're like, I'm in.
But I mean, it makes sense to me,
Yeah.
the Dinghy or the Windjammer or Coconut
Right.
Joe's. It doesn't make sense to me close down the street for 6 singers.
Well, that's not what we're talking about expanding the event.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
Again,
when we move out of the
it's too much.
parking lot, we're talking about expanding this and making it a much larger event and bringing in regional and national acts, which have a much larger draw. So when you talk about combining our promotional efforts with the artists themselves' promotional efforts, spending money on social media advertising, having posters and flyers throughout the state. I mean, we're not just going to advertise this in Isle of Palms because, like I said, if we're trying to attract heads and beds, we're going to be advertising this event in the Midlands, the Grand Strand, the Upstate, just across the North Carolina border, just across the Georgia border. You know, those are the kind of places where we're going to push the word out for this to try to get people to come down here. I can tell you that in September of this year, I did a first of its kind event in Columbia, South Carolina. Never done this event before. We booked it 60 days out. We drew 1,800 people in 7 hours.
And what kind of event? What was the event?
It's called
Singers?
Fan Fest. It's actually very similar to this. We had 4 musical acts. We brought in some art and apparel vendors. We had some kids' activities. We did an oyster roast. We had some local dignitaries come and speak between musical acts. And like I said, we had 1,800 people show up in 7 hours. So getting the word out and getting people to an event. I mean, I've got 20 years of event coordinating experience. I became a professional event coordinator in May of 2003. I have put on over 50 festivals in 20 years. I can get the people to this island, no problem.
This seems like competing with our own street fair.
I think it depends. It's going to depend on the time of day. Frankly, you know, whether you may be able to pull it off and organize it in a very short period of time. I don't know if my staff would be able to be available and have the resources to support this event. So February seems like a very short time period for us to get that ready. I think in the off season, October, November, maybe a more feasible event, but I would not be able to be in a position right now to recommend a February event without talking to particular public safety personnel.
Well, again, and we're vying for the same people. We're going to have a street fair March What did you say? What's it?
Yes, it's usually first weekend of March. I do think that people generally enjoy outdoor events down at Front Beach.
But
in
two
the same
months, I
month.
don't-
That's why I said it depends on the time of year and the time of month. That it's not coinciding with some of the city events, and we only host two in Front Beach: the Front Beach Fest and the Holiday Street Festival, which is in December.
I guess, in my humble opinion, I would suggest you stick to the dinghy footprint this year.
Okay.
See
And
what
look,
you
when we
can
came
do,
in,
what you can do.
because of being late to the party and the process, I told Dave, I said, don't expect to get this approved in year one. I said, a lot of times when you make a proposal like this, they want you to kind of prove yourself. And so we knew that coming in today, that we were kind of under the gun and behind the eight ball on this. And so we get it. We have no problem doing this at the dinghy. We're going to do it at the dinghy if that's what it takes to do it this year. What we wanted to do was get on your radar and find maybe a date for next year that does work, that is agreeable for everybody, and a plan that's agreeable for everybody. I think if we're going to push to 2025 and you've got a December event and a March event, just thinking out loud, I would say we shoot for maybe January or February, where you've got 30 to 60 days either side, where you don't have a street closure event. We can come in and kind of fill a need, because at the end of the day, what you do need is you do need a tourism shot in the arm in the off season. You don't want to have it every weekend because, like you said, it puts a lot of strain on your infrastructure. But if you can have one every 6 to 8 weeks, that makes sense financially, I think, for everyone involved. And so, look, if the plan is for us to go back to the dinghy, take that up a notch this year, really raise it up a level, kind of get the excitement going, get the name out there, and then come back earlier in the process to you guys for the following year, that's okay. We don't, that's okay. We understood that coming in, that we were pitching something that had not been pitched to y'all yet, and it was really, it was coming soon. So that's okay. We really wanted to get on your radar, kind of give you the vision of what we want to do. Songwriter festivals are great in that they're very different from other music festivals. It's not as in your face, loud, rockin', over the top, right? This is a very family-friendly, community-friendly vibe that we're going for. And the concept is, again, we want it to be something that the ATAX committee, city council, and the local residents and businesses on Isle of Palms can be proud of and look forward to every year. So that's our main goal.
Ben?
Go ahead.
Just a piece of advice. The way our process is now structured, we go through a period right after the first of the year, between January and April, where we open up applications for the new fiscal year, which would be FY25.
Okay.
So if you want to try to put together an event for 25, you're going to have to get your plan in place, in your application in place, probably in the February timeframe, because we'll go through a process where we call for applications, we receive them, review them, we have a workshop to help people fill out the application, and then we have the presentations, and then ultimately we vote in like the end of April maybe, and we do that so that whatever we're approving is factored into the city budget that becomes alive in 7/1 fiscal year starting in July.
And that makes sense. Yeah.
So it's not like you have a whole lot of time now.
Right. Fair enough. Right.
To
Okay.
get 25 done. You've got maybe 2 or 3 months to get your thoughts together and then put it down on paper.
Okay. And that should work for us, because we're going to be in the middle of getting this one, planned and off the ground in April. And so I feel like that actually should be fairly easy for us to get that in a real pretty package for y'all. And, we'll put together an awesome highlight video like Mary Ann did and or Mary Alice did, and give you guys something to look at that you can really kind of envision and say, okay, this actually is something that we do want to be a part of.
Doug?
I've got one more technical question. that you might expect coming from a lawyer. You don't charge admission, do you?
So we don't charge admission. One thing that happened while I was working with Nicole back on Folly is when they were they were always trying to find new revenue streams. And so the first, I would say, I was out there 7.5 years. So the first 5 or 6 years, everything was free. What we did around 2015, if I remember correctly, is started charging for the wristband. If you wanted to buy adult beverages, you had to buy a wristband. So basically what that set up was a scenario where the festival's free, and kids get in free, obviously, because they're under 21. And if you don't drink, great, you're there for free, no problem. But if you wanted to go buy an adult beverage, you had to buy a wristband. And that was a revenue stream that we used. And actually, that was a major revenue stream. It jumped. I mean, one event in particular, we had gone from our revenue the year before was around $8 or $9 grand, and we added in the wristbands, and the revenue went up to close to 20 grand. I mean, so it doubled the revenue for that year. So that's an option that's on the table, but that, again, those are the kind of things that are up to you guys. We just throw ideas out there, and you guys tell us what you would like to do.
So, for example, Ray could come, and if he wouldn't have to pay unless he just.
No, I mean, if he's coming for, if he was just coming for an hour and he had to go do something that afternoon and he's like, I don't have time to grab a beer or whatever, he could just walk in and hang out and walk right on out. There wouldn't be like necessarily a place where we charge you at the door to come in and out. It would be more of, okay, if I'm going over to buy a drink, there's a booth right next to the bar that sells the wristbands.
I understand.
And they ID you and all, and we'd have to hire an off-duty law enforcement agent to check the IDs, because that's not something we do.
And then the second component was, you realize, of course, my antenna went up when you talked about pass-throughs. No matter how noble they might be, there's a prohibition against pass-throughs. If we gave you a grant, or we recommended a grant, you couldn't just turn around and grant it to somebody else, no matter how noble.
Yeah, right. No. What our plan, and I tried to explain this in the grant, but we were in a hurry getting it into you guys that day. But on Folly, we did have a thing where we could hold seed money. It looks like y'all don't do that, which is fine. We would give every dollar of revenue back to you guys, in the hopes that whatever we gave you back after the event would kind of would funnel back to us after our request, as far as let's just say in year 2, we had our revenue was 10 grand. So we cut y'all back, we give y'all back the $10,000 after the event, and then we'd ask for that.
I don't mean to cut you off.
Sorry.
When it's sold, you don't have to sell anymore. I understand what
Okay,
you're
fair
saying.
enough. Cool.
Thank you.
Okay, cool. Does anybody else have any more questions?
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank y'all.
Ben.
Hi.
Are we ready for the,
For some reason, I guess my computer's not reacting well to the connection with the TV, but I can have her on my laptop and connect the audio, and y'all will be able to see her and hear her. She will too. Do we want to try that?
Sure.
Okay. All right.
Can you still hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Great.
All right. You can go ahead, Ms.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I am LaVonda Brown, and I'm the Executive Director of YWCA Greater Charleston. We have been providing services to the Tri-County for 116 years, and we have been hosting an annual tribute to Dr. Martin Luther King for 52 years. This year we are scheduling a new event, which will be a VIP invitation-only reception for our VIP guests, sponsors, donors at a certain level. And we are planning to have it on the Isle of Palms, to my understanding. We've never had an event on IOP, period, but certainly not, to my knowledge, in support of the Dr. King tribute. And each year this tribute has continued to grow, and we've continued to target different parts of the Tri-County to bring a new population to various communities. The Dr. King tribute, as I said, has been going on for more than 50 years now, and it continues to grow. And so we're really excited about bringing our constituents, sponsors, program participants, potential speakers to IOP in hopes of introducing them to the island and making this a destination for our participants, not only during Dr. King weekend, but hopefully they'll come back. They will see and fall in love with the island as my husband and I have, and will continue to make that a part of the destination. So I don't want to belabor the presentation. I definitely want to answer any questions that you have, but just wanted to let you know what we are hoping to bring. And we are really hoping to make this an annual event, a pre-reception. This gives our sponsors and donors, board and staff, an opportunity to network with one another. It's a pretty elite group of individuals that sponsor this event. So we have local, throughout the Tri-County, elected officials, corporate leaders, faith leaders, and individual donors. So, and these are folks that would, probably more than half of them would be introduced to the island for the first time as a destination.
And just for the benefit of the group, this organization came before City Council in March of this year and made a presentation about this event, and it was approved as a sponsored event by the city. At that time, the direction was given to the organization to come through the ATAX committee for specific funding for the project. So the City Council has already embraced it as an event on Isle of Palms, but at the time they did not approve any funding for it. They're going through the process as it was recommended to them at that time.
And this event will happen in January during what is now a 6-day event, 6 days of various events throughout the community, all in support of paying homage and tribute to Dr. King.
Okay, I've got a couple of questions that,
Sure.
just to clarify the application. This event is January 10th, is that correct?
It is. There's a typo in the application. I think we got happy with our ones and zeros. But
Okay.
It is
Yeah.
January 10th,
Not October 10th.
2024. Yes, not October.
Okay. And then another question I had, you've got organizations that are supporting you with, I don't know if you call it donations or whatever, but things such as $8,500 donated by Wild Dunes. So what's the form of that? Are they for VIPs or something? Are they giving you rooms to distribute to people that you are trying to draw in, and that's an unpaid stay?
They're giving discount, which typically happens when we have events in spaces that have ballrooms. There will be discounts for those who want to stay. What the venue is offering to us is not charging us the typical rental fee for the ballroom to have the reception.
Okay.
And then on top of that, there will be discounted rooms for our attendees to register to stay overnight.
Do you know how big a block they have reserved for you?
I do not, and I'm not sure that we've come to that discussion as of yet.
Right.
So I'm not aware exactly of what the block looks like. But I'm sure I can get that information.
Right. Anything that's like 10 rooms on a particular night is considered a group. So if they've done any, over than that, and it may just be on an as-need basis, but it would be nice to know whether they consider it like a group event or not. I'm sure they do.
Yeah, the language of a group block is the language that has been used.
I would assume so. And Ms. Brown, on your materials going out, are you promoting Wild Dunes and saying that, oh, we have this block of rooms for you, and we encourage you to spend the night, and the rates are XYZ. Is that correct?
Yes, we will, yes.
Okay.
We will be making sure that our sponsors understand that this is something that is open to them, and we will, particularly if these funds are awarded, be promoting wide the fact that this reception, which is new, is going to be happening at the Wild Dunes. So yes, we will promote that. And this event doesn't just attract individuals from the Tri-County. We have participants that come from across the state and even further. Many of our keynote speakers, performers come from across the state and in other parts of the state. YWCA itself has about 200 affiliates across the country. Only about half of us do a King tribute, so there are other YWCAs that plan trips down to the Charleston area to celebrate with us during this time.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay, continuing on the application, there's an item that food and beverages provided by CVB, who is our direct marketing organization. You probably won't be able to answer this, but maybe Desiree might know. That $35,000, where is that coming from? Meaning, is that coming from our 30% fund that we pay CVB, or is it coming more from the CVB's general fund?
I don't recall in the budget that was presented by the CVB on the use of the city's 30%. I don't, which you all have to, recommend and council approves and has been approved by council. I do not recall there being a $35,000 expenditure listed for this event. So I would think it would come from their general fund or their private, their other sponsors or other, their private donations or private contributions.
So we don't really know, so that'd be something I think it would be good to understand.
I could quickly go back to the budget that was presented to the committee and approved by council to confirm that they're not using part of the city's 30% to sponsor this event. I don't recall, I don't believe they are, but I can quickly confirm.
Okay. Any other questions, Rebecca?
Also, as stated, this is the first year and there's no history of lodging on the island. Again, this is.
Correct.
So you have no idea how many people thus far have actually made nightly room reservations on the island as of this time. Am I correct?
Correct. Not as of this date. We will be, we reach out to our sponsors leading up to the holidays to find out, make sure, one, that they take advantage of all of their sponsorship benefits and remind them of what their benefits are, to include the discounted rooms, and we will poll them to ask what their intentions are as far as staying overnight.
So there's no guarantee at this point that there's 1,000, I'm just using that number,
Right.
500 or 1,000 people that would even book nights at Wild Dunes or anywhere on the Isle of Palms.
Correct. There's no data or no knowledge of that at this time. Our goal is that this will become annual. It is quite possible that the 180 or so individuals that will come to the reception will see something that they fall in love with and will realize that they, really should have stayed over. This would be much more fun if we made this an overnighter. So I think this is an introduction to a group of folks that will make it hopefully an annual thing, an annual destination. And I understand the rolling of the dice to make something happen that hasn't happened before. But I also think that just the promotions that we will provide, the exposure to particularly a demographic that may not consider Isle of Palms as a destination, or, I'm not from Charleston, so I speak very I'm very kind with my words and I'm cautious about what I say about Charleston, but I will say that getting people to cross a bridge is not an easy task. And so when we can give people a reason to cross a bridge, then sometimes their eyes are open to something new. And I've seen that in the 7, almost 8 years that I've been transplanted here in Charleston.
LaVonda, so the potential audience, or that's not the right word maybe, but the potential attendees are limited to 180. That's the invitees, I guess you would call them. And
that is current. That's our current estimate. Yes.
So I guess I'm trying to understand a couple of things. One, you must know who those people are, and do you have any information to tell us where you're drawing those people from? Like if 100 of them were from Charleston, Tri-County area, the likelihood that they're staying over is not as great as if somebody's coming from Columbia or Greenville or something of that sort. Can you tell us where those invitees are coming from?
Sure. So I can tell you some of our sponsors who are not, most of our top sponsors are not just local. They may, like Boeing, for example, is not just local. Nucor is international. Intertech is international. Coastal Community Foundation is statewide. The Charleston Baptist, I think it's convention, maybe it's union. They are statewide, and so there are others like Blue Cross Blue Shield, Publix, Dominion, which is not even headquartered here, but they're a sponsor as well. So those are just a list of some of the sponsors that we have. And again, I think that this will be an opportunity for us to open the eyes of folks who would, want to, and they do come. So we don't have the history of anyone staying on the island because we haven't really given them the opportunity to see that or to think about that. But the events include a parade downtown, which attracts people from all across the country, the business and professional breakfast, the ecumenical service. So we're talking hundreds of people, and I'd say probably at least a third of them are coming from outside of the Tri-County.
Where does the 180 invitations come from? You give sponsors a block and then they decide who they're going to invite from their organization or their firm?
Yes, so we do, each sponsorship level has a certain number of invitees, and we ask that those are, our C-level employees from those companies.
So I think you might want to, a way to look at it is that it's a slow or a dead weekend anyway. So if Wild Dunes gets, 10, 20, 30 overnight rooms on that night, it would be dead anyway. So that would be the win. Plus the exposure.
Yes, thank you.
I've got a question.
Okay, Doug?
Ms. Brown, good morning. I'm Doug Truslow. I have a couple of questions, but first I want to thank you for your forethought. This sounds like a very laudatory event that's good.
Thank you.
Could be very much a win-win for everybody. And it looks like you've checked off a lot of the criteria for eligibility, and I know the VA is a 501c corporation, so we don't need to ask you about that. But our two things, our guidelines anticipate, it's not necessarily required, but they anticipate that there's a history of success and continuing operation, because at least one time in the past, we gave money up front for a play. We gave $10,000, and they put on the play and never saw them, never got any response, never got anything back, and our taxpayers' money was just gone. And do you have any history of ever doing anything like this, or anything that you can make us feel comfortable that, that this will be a success, not only for 1 year, but going forward for the Isle of Palms and the community in general?
And are you speaking of as far as hotel blocks or the events themselves?
One of the primary criteria pursuant to the law is what they call heads on beds, that people
Heads
come
on beds.
spend the night. That's one of the,
That is not a criteria, sir.
I respectfully disagree. That I think it's one of the criteria set forth by law that we're supposed to be looking at, and we have a set of guidelines, but I'll go beyond that. Is this an event that's going to be, I think our guidelines require that the event be open to the public. Is our money going to be used for a restricted group, or is it going to be open to, we want to be fair to everybody, but is it going to be restricted to a select group, or is the event going to be open to everybody?
So we do have an invitation list. Again, this is in partnership with Wild Dunes, with the Charleston Visitors Bureau, as well as we would consider this in partnership with the Isle of Palms. So, we would be open to invitations out, and that's where the 180, we're considering that our partners would also want to invite. I had not heard that this needed to be open to the public. So, because it is an opportunity for folks who would be able to stay at the Wild Dunes at a different time, or even during this time with a discount. So, and we, of course, our organization is an organization that is fighting for equitable access to all things. So we certainly would not want to shut it down to anyone, but I think we'd be open to seeing what that looked like, because we also do want to make sure that the folks that are there and are sponsoring this event are feeling as if they're attending something that is special for others that are, the elected officials, gives them an opportunity to network with folks that can help their business in the future.
I'm still trying to understand, would this be, would our taxpayers' money being, as it would be used for, again, a laudatory event, would it be open to all the taxpayers or just for a select group? I'll tell you, I would have a problem if it was not open to all of the community. But I'm trying to get my mind around it. Can you help me understand, please?
Yeah, I think that we would have to take guidance from this committee on what is acceptable and what's required for this pot of money.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Brown. Appreciate it.
Do we have any more questions?
Just for the record.
Just to make, I'm sorry, to make one other point, beyond the heads and beds, we do have a history. Yes, we've been paying tribute to Dr. King's almost 25 years. The ecumenical service is about 19. Our youth open mic is 7. And our business and professional breakfast is 21. So all of these started as a pilot, started very small. The business and professional breakfast started in a gym, and now we've maxed out of the Gilliard, where literally we have to cut off tickets because of space, not because of lack of sales. So we do have a history of starting events and maintaining them. So the heads and beds would be new for us, though.
But this, just to clear it up here, so this really is, in a way, a welcome or a thank you to the donors and organizers of the event. It's not open to the public. This is
Absolutely.
Right. Okay.
Yes, that's our initial vision, yes.
The sponsors, right.
Can I ask where the event was held last year?
This is the first.
This will be the first reception.
Okay.
This will be the first year for this type of reception. Yes, we have tried to do a after the business breakfast intimate gathering, but the breakfast is 7 in the morning. People are ready to go to work by 9. And it just became, so we tried to think about doing something new, and then this, doing this on Isle of Palms became just a desirable location to do it. We knew last year that we would do something prior to the breakfast as opposed to trying to do something after.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much, Lavonda. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you, Lavonda. I will reach out to you once they've made a recommendation and let you know.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Okay, next item.
I wanted to just comment on one thing. I appreciate your comment, but I would respectfully disagree. I'm regarding the heads on beds being an important factor. Our clear criteria for project eligibility says that ATAX grants must have as their primary mission, and it goes on to talk about what's commonly called heads on beds, and then it says that priority is given to organizations or projects that have the following characteristics, quote, generation of overnight stays within the Isle of Palms, end quote. So
I think I'm
it
referring
is what
to,
it
I'm
is what it
referring to
is.
state law, not the guidelines that were adopted by the committee. For example, the city has granted grants to the Exchange Club for their bulkhead project. I don't think that brought heads and beds to the city. Same thing for the VFW for their maintenance repairs. I think it's a gauge to understand how the tourism attraction has happened, and that's why it's part of the policies. But when you look at the section in state law that describes the tourism eligible activities, it just says to attract and promote tourism to the community, not a requirement that an applicant must show that there were heads and beds. I think it's a great gauge and understanding of how to bring people from outside of 50 miles and over. But we could certainly ask and get an opinion from the city attorney on whether or not it's a requirement.
But
We've looked at it before, and I don't think it's been.
I have. I've looked at it. I'm familiar with the state law, but it also says that we're supposed to establish guidelines.
That's right.
And they're very clear that we've got to establish guidelines. We have a set of guidelines, so you can't, I'm not talking about you personally, but one cannot just say, well, it doesn't say so in state law, because state law dictates that we have guidelines and a set of criteria that we're supposed to faithfully follow.
That's right.
We can. And so we have guidelines. I would just suggest, just like if we have laws, we're supposed to follow them. That doesn't mean I'm going to vote against this. I think it's a very laudatory project, and project. But the guidelines, we have guidelines. If we have them, I think we ought to follow the law. I don't think we can ignore the law.
I don't disagree. I think
You can
the guidelines are different than state law. That's the only clarification I wanted to make.
Okay, moving on. Next presentation will be by George Page concerning the VFW application.
If you hear my stomach growl, I didn't eat breakfast this morning, so pardon that. I'm George Page. I want to thank you guys. You've been very generous to the VFW in the past. In particular, recently, we've had our elevator installed. It's back in September. It's working well. It's doing great. And we're in the process right now of laying the new walkway that you helped us with in my last request. Basically, the VFW has been here for some 40-odd years. We attract veterans from all over the East Coast and even from the Midwest. I do not have an actual number of how many people put their heads on the beds here in this area, but I do know that a lot of them do. All I can do is give you word-of-mouth examples. The first weekend in October, a guy's down here from Ohio because he comes every week for a week, because he comes to our VFW and he goes to a certain concert. We have this weekend is Veterans Day. Vets for Vets is back here again this year. I spoke with the guy who's in charge of it. He said that at least there are 15 rooms booked on the island, I think at both Boardwalk and the Sweetgrass Inn, for those people. And they're gonna have, he said, at least 200 vets here this weekend. So it'd probably be pretty neat if you get downtown and see that. We do things year-round for veterans. We do fish fries that are open to the public from September to May. We have 4th of July open. We do a nice Memorial Day service. We have a 9/11 service, which is for our own fire department and our own police force. We do something almost daily for the VA hospital downtown. We also are here on the street for both of our festivals. One's coming up soon, and then the one we do in March, we have a presence on the street. We have hundreds of tourist visitors a week during the season. I mean, it's almost impossible to count the number of people we have coming. This time of year, we have hundreds a month because it's just slowed down just like everybody else. And this is why when we are looking for hopefully maintenance money, we get it done in the off-season time. I know what all of you are thinking right now. What do windows have to do with tourists? Look to your right out that window. What do you see? Street, tree limb, strip mall. When our visiting vets and tourists come to through our front door, they walk up to our bar and they look out and you hear, wow. There's not many people that have much better reaction than we get. And I'm talking about 100% of the time. People come in, they look out that window and they go, wow, oh my God, are you kidding me? And then follow it up, this is the best VFW I've ever been in. I drink, they walk out and they have fun on the deck. But their first impression of IOP Beach is wow. It's from our deck. Now those windows have been there for 40 years. You can put your finger through the box wood around it. They're about to fall out. A good low pressure system, a heavy duty thunderstorm or a nor'easter is going to take these things out. They're already leaking. And the reason I'm here today is to see if we could get some help from you guys to help replace them. Another aspect too is we have what's called the windjammer effect. People come to the IOP VFW because they can watch the windjammer concerts for free. And they come from all over. There's one certain group that comes every year, I can't remember the name of them, and they're here all weekend. And there's 1,000 people who pay $700 for a ticket to go to that thing from, I think, Friday afternoon. They have a Saturday breakfast, a Saturday afternoon event, and a Sunday event. We have 300 to 400 people come stay with us because they don't have to pay for that ticket. So we do bring a lot of people from way outside 50 miles on a regular basis and year-round. During the season, it's a greater number than it is at any other time. I'm going to keep it short. I'll let y'all ask any questions you may have.
Barb?
We supported you with the walkway because obviously tourists can use it to get to the beach. And we supported you for the elevator, considering the age of many of the veterans.
Yes,
but
ma'am.
I think maintaining the building's on you. If it's the thin end of the wedge, if we start replacing your windows, what happens when the hotel next door wants to replace his windows?
Well, I doubt he's a 503C
Oh, I bet he is.
organization.
Well,
But
still, and then is your roof next? You know, I mean, you guys have to, if you've waited 40 years to replace these windows, I mean, you can't come to us at the last minute in a panic to ask for money.
Well, in the past, we have used our golf tournament to raise a lot of money for our maintenance and insurance. In the last 3 years, our insurance, I'm just saying, in the last 3 years, the amount of money we're getting from golf courses and our donations from golf courses has dropped significantly. It was regularly 4 or 5 years ago over $20,000 a year. And I wouldn't be here if this golf tournament continued with the donations that we've been getting. This past weekend, we had our golf tournament at Patriots Point because we can no longer get it set up at Wild Dunes. They want too much money. They don't allow us to, sell our own beverages, and they just have cut us back to where they only give us tee times. We had 9 teams. We normally have 25 teams in a golf tournament. We normally have 50 to 100 sponsors. I think we maybe made about $4,000. So generally, I wouldn't be over here in a panic. I would have said, this is being taken care of. But in addition, insurance for us, because we do have a bar, went from $13,000 to $23,000. And we actually had to close down when we got our initial quote from our original for a week in July, one of our biggest weeks, because it was going from $13,000 to $85,000. We had to find somebody else to write our insurance for us. So we have had some major expenses. I wouldn't be here asking for this if we didn't need it. And I do understand what you're talking about from the standpoint of an emergency request.
And to confirm that the request is for 2,500?
Yes.
Any other questions for George?
Do you have a quote on the window? How much is?
It's $5,200.
$5,200.
There's 4 windows, so it's about $1,250 a piece.
Doug?
Thank you for coming. George, I think you expressed we had not about the details of a discussion about the details of this, but the time you had to prepare a comprehensive report. Can you address that and feel like you had enough time to prepare your application? Do you need more? We want to be fair to you. We want you to be able to be fair to us. And in that regard, I think Barb asked a good question, but specifically, I'm looking at South Carolina Code Section 6-4-5 that says ATAX funds are required to be used for, under Section C, construction, maintenance, operation of civic and cultural activities, including construction and maintenance to roads and utilities for facilities. Do you need more time? Will it help you? Or are we being fair to you? Have you had enough time to do all this, or would you like more time before we might make a final decision?
I did just kind of get the application a few weeks ago, and I was on the road quite a bit and out of town a lot. So I didn't have 100% of the time I wouldn't mind having on this. So when I went to the House Committee, I said, what is our most pressing need if I'm going to make an application? And the windows was the thing they came up with. And it's my understanding that maintenance is something that we can request, okay? And so that's the only thing that came up that was in the pressing need for me to be able to get an application in a timely fashion, and I may have not even completed it as well as I could have. But if the windows would not satisfy the need of the committee, I would definitely appreciate some additional time to possibly look into see what else we could come up with as far as the need might be.
All right, then the second thing, I know that you have a lot of documentation. When people come in to the VFW, there's a record for people that have come from more than 50 miles away. Do you know about how many pages of documents like that you get in a month?
In the summertime, I think there's about 30 lines on each page, and we probably get, on the weekend, 10 to 15 pages filled, and during the week, probably 3 to 5 pages every day. So, didn't do the math on that, but we get literally 1,000 people from out of that 1,000 people, 50% of them are going to be local people, okay, at least, and maybe a few more, but at least 20% of those people are always coming from another state, well past the 50-mile mark.
Thank you.
I didn't print those up. I apologize. I just didn't have time to go and take those again this time and say, here are the documentation that we have, and I apologize for that.
No, you'd given them to us before.
I didn't really want to kill another tree. I'm sorry.
I just this is an FYI for me. Do you have a record on the people who come here and stay on the Isle of Palms versus the people who come here and stay in Mount Pleasant? And the reason I ask is there are some veterans that feel that Isle of Palms overall may be out of their price range and go into Mount Pleasant. So I don't know if you have a report that said these people stay in Isle of Palms, these people stay in Mount Pleasant. And I mean, that's only for my own information.
I don't have a specific report. We do try and get the name and address of the people, where they're from, what state they're from. And by word of mouth, we ask people, where are you staying? But it's also, the other thing is, we promote the restaurants out on this island before we promote anyone else's. And but I do not have that number.
Any other questions for George? Okay, thank you very much, George.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, are we ready to vote on these I guess the Songwriters Festival is off the table.
Are they?
For a vote.
I think they were going to resubmit as part of the FY25
I thought they
process.
were going to go ahead and do it at the dinghy and there.
Yeah, but that doesn't require anything from us.
But that's what they.
It's off the table.
I lost my battery, so I no longer have your paperwork. I thought they were asking for money for this year, for this coming April,
They were,
and now they're not.
now they're not.
Okay.
That's my understanding.
That's correct.
Okay.
I don't think they could do it with the city.
Yeah, that was probably a deal breaker right there.
Before we vote, can we just do a recap of who is going to resubmit the applicant? Aren't some people going to resubmit? I'm a little confused on where we are with,
Okay.
like, I think we were waiting for the 501c3 classification.
No, we were going to vote on that.
Yeah, my expectation on Mary Alice Monroe's application is that we will vote on that with the
Caveat or whatever.
Contingent upon receiving.
right,
Right,
with
continue.
understanding that by the time the money is dispersed, they will be in place with their 501c3.
And they just need to present that to council?
Yes, to
They-
confirm that
They would pre-
entity is in place.
They would present that to the city, to the staff. We would confirm with council once that's been satisfied and
But I
if
really don't
approved.
want to hold that process up under, just because there's not a whole lot of time. And I don't know, as city council are they even going to have a meeting in December?
they will have a meeting November 28th, the regular meeting this month, and then they'll have a special meeting December 5th.
Okay,
So
okay, so
our
we're
goal,
kind of,
our goal is to present the recommendations made tonight at the November 28th meeting.
right, okay. And then the songwriters, I think they're going to intend to put together their event for this winter at the dinghy with no involvement from us. And then I encouraged them to get their application in place and their plans in place for fiscal '25, which then will disposition in the January to May timeframe.
Okay.
And then the YWCA, I think that's ready to be voted on, and the VFW is ready to be voted on.
And the Make-A-Wish, we were holding on them for
Their,
what reason?
their request was $5,000, and the committee had requested additional information about how many people were attending the event and staying at Wild Dunes
Because
for
it
the
was a
event.
new event.
Because it
There
was a
was no
new
historical
event.
data for that.
That's
Well,
right.
I think what we asked for, some historical data, because they had an event they were giving a presentation and they were having an event the next week or something.
Correct.
And so we said, well, we'd like to see the data on
that
rooms
event.
reserved on that event so that we can consider next year's event. And we haven't heard back from them yet.
And Chair, just as a reminder, the FY25 application process will start December 1st. We'll advertise the availability and the application process, and the deadline is February 2nd of next year.
Right. Yeah, I didn't have all the exact dates. I just, okay.
Are we going to meet, are we going to meet again before the end of the year or not? Do we know?
I don't think there's a
I don't think
need.
there's any business to attend to.
I was concerned about the VFW, whether they wanted, were asking for more time, or they weren't asking for more time. They said they had a short window of time to make their application, and I wasn't sure I want to accommodate everybody if I can, but what was everybody's sense? I don't want to hold anybody up.
My sense was that George felt like he had the time required to put the application in place.
Okay. All right.
Okay. How do we want to proceed with the voting? Do we need a motion on each individual presentation?
Yes, sir.
Okay, do I have a motion
I moved to.
on the Mary Alice Monroe event at Wild Dunes with the provision that, understanding that before the event kicks off, they will have in place their 501c3 designation. And we would vote on that, we would vote on that premise.
You made I'll second the motion.
Well, you have to have a dollar amount in there?
Yeah, is there a dollar amount?
Yes,
You're doing the-
$20,000. And we've had a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Do you want to do a roll call or just,
I think a voice vote.
okay,
should
all in
suffice.
favor?
Aye.
I guess that's unanimous. Okay. Congratulations. The songwriters will table. Next item is the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Tribute Week VIP reception. Their request is $10,000. And do I have a motion to approve that?
I move.
We have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Could we change the amount? Does it have to be 10?
Sure.
And since it's a first event and it's basically a posh cocktail party for 180 people, cut it to 5,000.
Is it your motion to make a motion to amend it to
Amendment.
5,000?
Yes.
Okay. Does anybody want to second that one?
Second.
So you need to vote on the motion to amend and then the motion to
Okay.
approve.
All in favor of amending the motion from 10,000 to 5,000? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
So now you need to vote on the
Now we'll
amended,
vote on the amendment.
amended motion.
We have a discussion.
Yeah, sure, certainly.
Okay. Number one, I would observe this for a laudatory event. We have the dollars available. What is concerned to me is if we're going to follow our guidelines, even though we make exceptions, this is a new event, and typically somebody has to have established that this has or will be a success, because we know in the past we've given money. People would say, and they're good events, but they would say they were going to do something. They would get the money and never account and be gone, and we would have lost the taxpayers' money. What was most concerning to me was that this is an elite event not open to the public, and when the taxpayers' money is to be spent, it's supposed to be available to everybody and not a limited group. So my heart tells me I want to support this, but my heart also tells me, and my mind tells me, that if it's not going to be something that's open to everybody, to the entire public, I just can't support it, although I would like to. That's my position.
I agree with Doug.
Any other thoughts? Okay.
I would just have throw in there that I just think, because this is quite like we had a long discussion with the Make-A-Wish Foundation, and we don't have history.
Right.
That would be my concern.
I don't know how you're gonna consider the success of a party. You know, I mean, they're not raising money at the party. It's not like any Mary Alice is going to give money to a charity or whatever. This is just, we're paying for a dinner or cocktails, right? To an invited group, whether that falls under what you want to do or not, no.
Well, Mary Alice's group is open to the public.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. That's
Everybody
my
in the
point.
country.
Yeah, right. And they're an event. All of these, the songwriters, you know, there's a charity event, they're raising money. This is sort of a little niche. This is just
it is.
a cocktail party / reception for big donors to
VIPs.
the MLK week, right?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
we're never going to have a success to that. I mean, you know, there's no way to, if everyone shows up, it's a success, right? So you know, as far as not showing up the next time or whatever.
So maybe this is just the wrong bucket of money, like we've talked about before, and they can go back to the city council and ask for a donation.
There you go.
Is that possible?
But are they
I'm sorry?
supporting tourism in January when you need it? You know, it's an event in January and you're bringing the infamous heads in beds.
Well,
I don't know.
except-
Just food
yeah.
for thought.
Again, there's no track record. I mean, we don't know how many are going to show up. And you talk about heads and beds, there may be 50, there may be 500.
If I
You
had
don't
to
know.
guess, they'll get maybe 10, 20, 30 sleeping rooms on that night.
Yeah.
If it's 100, if they're inviting about 180 people, that would be my best guess.
But I agree with Doug, the big obstacle here is it's closed to the public, and the public is what's funding
That
their-
event is, yeah,
Yes.
that's true. But, all right, I don't know. That's right.
Wouldn't the same apply? And this is just for conversation. The Exchange Club is a members-only organization. The VFW, even though they support veterans from out of state, in state, it's also available to members only. I don't think members of the public can go inside the facility and.
I think with the
No, they can.
VFW you can.
The
If you're
With
with
the
a,
V-
can.
Yeah.
If
If you're with a
Yeah.
veteran, but so there's a caveat there, I
I
don't
think the
know.
Exchange Club was the bulkhead.
True, which is
project, Which is
available.
open to the public and with seats and so on.
Yeah, I can see the difference there, but.
Okay, we ready to vote?
So you're voting on the amended motion, which was to just grant 5,000.
Right. Want to do a roll call, or you want to just?
Sure.
Is the vote to approve?
$5,000
Or
grant.
just?
The $5,000.
This is a vote to
But we
grant
haven't approved
$5,000,
whether we-
recommended
No,
grant.
this is a vote to change the,
No, this
No,
is,
we've
you already
already-
voted to
we've
change to
already
5,000.
oh, okay, so now.
This is just
We've already voted to
vote
give
as
them
amended to $5,000, yes or no?
Well,
Huh?
I also think that, well, I won't say that. Okay.
I didn't understand. I thought the first vote was whether we were going to reduce
We
the
did.
amount.
And we did.
And we
Now we're
voted on
voting
that.
whether they ought to get anything.
So the
No, you-
the
the
motion.
approval of the 5,000.
The motion
No.
was to approve the request, which
Oh,
was
right.
for 10,000. Then that motion was amended to reduce that amount to 5,000. And that's what y'all voted on already. So you
Yeah.
voted on, you've amended the original motion to approve 5,000.
And now we have to vote.
And now that's what you're going to vote on now.
Well, then do we vote on whether we approve this community event at all? I mean,
This is what you're voting on. You're voting to approve, to give
I've got-
$5,000 to that event.
well, I'm still confused. When do we vote on whether we agree or disagree that this event is appropriate for the ATAX
Right
committee?
now.
You do that now.
That's what you're voting on right now. Because if you vote yes, you've decided that it's an appropriate event to receive ATAX funds.
Okay.
In the amount of $5,000.
All right. It takes me a little bit longer.
Can I just say something?
Sure, go right ahead.
I'm gonna change things, but I think I would feel comfortable if we could move that number to 2,500, because we're talking about 120 people, right?
180.
180.
Well, so if you break it down, then without history, it's hard to say, are they gonna come or stay? But I did like the way she used the term crossing the bridge, bringing people here, which we want to do. 5,000, 10,000 is a big number. I think 25 is a nice start to build the bridge.
So you have to make a motion. Can she make a motion to?
Well, we have to vote on.
No,
Yeah,
you can
I
make
can't do that.
you can make another motion to amend the amended motion. You can amend a motion just 2 times. This would be the second time, so you can make a motion to amend the amount. We would have to vote on that, and if that amendment passes, then the original motion to approve the request for 2,500
Okay,
would then
so I
be
can make a
voted.
motion to amend the amended motion
Yep,
to 25.
that's right.
So moved?
Me?
You just did that?
Yes.
Second.
Now we vote on that amended motion, and if there is discussion, it has to be just on the amount.
Gotcha.
Okay.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Now you
Opposed?
vote on the
Hold on.
amended motion.
You didn't, you didn't say anything, neither did you.
I said something, I said aye.
Okay, I didn't hear that.
Okay.
Okay, I just want to make sure it's all in favor before we move forward. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so now you're voting on the amended motion to approve the request for 2,500.
Do you want a roll call vote? Mr.
Sure.
Burns? Yes, okay. Ms. Lorenz?
Aye.
Ms. Kovalich?
Nay.
Mr. Treslow?
Nay.
Mr. Akers?
Aye.
Ms. Bergwerf?
Aye.
Ms. Clark?
Aye.
Mr. Burns?
Nay.
The motion passes.
Okay, the last item is the VFW application for $2,500 for the window replacement. Do I have a motion to approve? Okay. I think that means there is no
No motion.
interest in approving that amount. Just on a, editorial comment, to Barb's point, I think the walkway makes sense from a tourism point of view, and I think the elevator equally makes sense for the same reason. It seems to me like building maintenance of window-type things should come out of their general fund, and it's not a part of what we do, but that's just an opinion. Okay. Motion to adjourn?
Motion. I move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Do we have a meeting set up?
Off record at 1:09.
For January, whatever?
Yes, your next meeting, it's when we meet to review the presentations for the request for FY '25. I had it up in a, let me see. It will be, the presentations are on March 12th. So that'll be your next meeting, March 12th, 2024.
Is it possible to scan or send by email the guidelines for the ATAX committee?
Do you want the guidelines that were approved by the committee or the guidelines that are based on state law from Turk? They're 2 different things. I can send you both.
Can you send all of us?
Sure, I can do
So
that.
we can make sure that we're kind of up to date on this?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Thank you.
So March 12th, Barb. And I'll send a calendar invite to the members that are staying for next year. Okay. Y'all have a nice day.
All right. See ya.
Thank you.
Now, the thing about the MLK, I almost said it, and I didn't.
Yeah, because it was too late last night. But
Don't forget your sweater.
thank you. Well, I got another meeting at 4:30.
Cities are